So this is the cheapest 330 Ci with the manual transmission on Marketplace. Today we're going to be bringing back this crusty old BMW back to life, so hope you guys enjoy the process.
I'm going to show you guys what this BMW looks like.
This fender doesn't really look the best.
I'm not too sure how you get marks like that. Could have been a bird.
So the worst thing about this thing is that it doesn't actually run.
So me and my little brother actually picked this thing up from the guy's son, and he told me that it hasn't been running in 2 years. Apparently it's got all sorts of vacuum leaks and idling issues, so we're going to figure that out. But before we do that, we're going to show you the rest of the car.
So as you guys can tell, it is a coupe, so that's a good thing. So it is missing the kidney grills, but the whole front end is actually fairly complete. So it does need a new badge as well. I'm pretty sure these are fairly cheap on eBay. So as for the rear of the car, it's actually fairly complete. We are missing a little bit of clear coat, but honestly, it's not the end of the world. It is a 20-year-old car at the end of the day. So it did come with a receiver back here, but I don't actually know if this is safe on one of these things. So it did come with these nice 17-inch M Sport wheels. Being a 330 Ci, these actually come with upgraded brakes. As you can see, the brakes almost hit the wheel.
Get into the interior part of this thing. Besides some damage right here, it doesn't actually look too bad. Besides that knob, as you can tell, pretty messed up and dirty.
Overall, the condition of this car isn't too bad, but we're going to take this thing to the shop and see what's going on. So we made it to the shop. Now it's time to get this thing unloaded and push it into the bay.
All right, so the first thing we notice is the engine bay is absolutely disgusting. So that means we're gonna have to give this thing a full detail, and also the interior in this car is pretty bad as well. So as for the rear of the car, there's actually a big box with a bunch of parts in it, so let's see what's in it.
So these are the new parts the owner provided. So here we have a radiator hose, and we have a thermostat and thermostat housing, coolant reservoir, a water pump, upper radiator hose, coolant cap, level sensor, coolant temperature sensor, some BMW genuine cool. This is probably at least like $300 in parts. Shout out to the old owner of this thing for hooking us up. It's kind of a double-edged sword because typically when BMWs need all this, it might need a head gasket.
Might have a lifted head.
Hopefully this thing didn't get too warm. Hopefully we don't have to do a head gasket. Testing to see if the, okay, so first we're going to be see if the control arms have any play. So something is moving. Kind of looks like it could be that inner tie rod, so we might have to add that to our list. Now we're going to get the up and down. That's solid. So this side actually checks out. Look at the rear. Typically there's nothing too bad back here, but it's always worth a shot. Solid. Solid. Now we're just going to go all the way up. Alright, so we're going to look underneath this thing, and hopefully there's nothing too bad.
So this ain't really that good. This could potentially be a rear main seal or potentially the oil pan.
That might be the oil pan. These kind of suck to do.
Damn, the thing is pretty stock. It has every belly pan that there is that I've ever seen.
It's like somebody crinkled this exhaust shield. Let's see, so the back half of this is actually fairly clean. I'm not noticing anything too bad back here. Other than just a bunch of spider webs. This is how our receiver is bolted on. I don't know how much I trust it, but it's on there. Yeah, this car, for being a car imported from Hawaii, it's honestly not even rusty underneath. So somebody took care of this thing. It was probably kept in the garage. So apparently this thing has James Bond tires. These are run flats. They're made by Bridgestone, and they're the drive guards. We probably won't be putting run flats back on this thing. We'll be putting a decent tire on here, but none of these. I actually want to see how these hold up to drifting. That'd be pretty cool. I don't know if there's like gel or anything in them. Alright, so now we're going to start digging in this thing and see if we find anything good. So we cleaned the back of the E46, and the trunk was actually full of stuff. After separating the goods from the literal trash that was in there, this is what we got. One kidney grill. It's the chrome one, but we're missing the other one, so it doesn't help us out too much. We do have a oil filter housing, which I hope it's not leaking because that's another shitty job on these cars. Got some vacuum lines. When these cars, it's very well known that they get brittle and crack, especially out here in the desert. We do have a AC belt. We have 4 BMW center caps. Whoever owned this car, apparently they like to detail their car quite frequently because it did have some cleaning supplies in there, which that's pretty cool. One thing they did have, which this is a California Duster. Not really the best thing you should be using on your car. I have this, which I don't know what this is, but we got it. And then the scariest thing of them all. So this thing resembles a head gasket. Could be a valve cover gasket, but there's nothing that says what it is on here. So we're going to open this up and hopefully it's not a head gasket because that's going to suck. Oh, this is an oil pan gasket, right?
I think it is, yeah.
All right, cool. So that saves us a little bit of money there. It's not the best, but it's definitely better than what's in there. As you guys saw earlier, it does look like it's leaking.
So now we're going to see if this thing will actually turn on. But before you do that, you want to actually check your oil and all the other fluids. Got some.
Got oil.
It ain't milky. Okay, so now we're also going to check the coolant. Definitely want to do that. So we got coolant. Looks full.
All right, so now we're going to put some power to this car. That way we can see if it actually has fuel and to see if it's actually going to turn on. So this is our jump pack. So the battery in these cars is actually right in here. I'm going to lift this up. Actually, it has a really nice spare. And the jack. Yeah, this is nice. It's got the chalk on there. Got trailer wiring. Yeah, let's remove this. We'll hook up power and ground. Okay.
Got power.
We got power. Now I want to do the honors?
Yep. See. Looks like we actually might need some gas before we turn this thing on. The light is flashing, so.
All right, and to open up this gas lid, you just have to push in. Opens it right up. This being a BMW, it is gonna take some 91. So, I guess my little brother's gonna go get some gas.
Oh shit.
All right, guys. So round 2, we have some fuel in there, and we have the jump box right there. See if she cranks. So I guess we're going to try reading the codes and see what it comes up with.
Looks like to be the mass airflow sensor. We have a code for that saying something about like output and input power. So we're going to see maybe if there's something wrong. Oh shit. Well, yep, that's definitely our input and output.
Alright guys, so this is what we ended up doing. We just patched it up for just some heat shrink connectors on there. That way it's a little safer from the elements, and little extender wires. It was missing about 4 inches of actual wire. Don't really know where that went. So we got nothing, so we're going to spray some starter fluid in here to see if it's a fuel issue. Go ahead. Hey! It didn't sound too bad, guys. Okay, so we definitely have a fuel issue. Then they're cranking the key to see if we could actually hear the fuel pump prime. I think that's our issue. All right, guys, so it's the next day, and I actually brought this fuel pump from home. It's the one off of my E46 before I did the LS swap, and it worked good, so we're gonna put this on this car and see if it fixes it.
To get to the fuel pump, it's actually just underneath the seat. They make it really easy. So basically we just come over here, lift up on the front seat, move that out of the way, and you come underneath here and just pull. So after removing that seat, we can come over here and you'll actually see that's the cover for the fuel pump right there. Okay, so these 4 bolts are just 10s. You can just go ahead and zap those out. And put those somewhere, you'll find them.
All right, so while my little brother's changing the fuel pump, we're gonna be swapping out this battery. We did have the trickle charger on there overnight, but it did not fix it. So now that we have the battery connected, we're gonna see if there's actual power going to the fuel pump. So we have the fuel pump wire disconnected, and we're just gonna turn this key and see if there's any power going to it. So we're not getting power to the electrical connector that goes to the fuel pump. So actually checking to see if the fuse is blown or if it's even in there. I always hate those tools. Work.
She's blown.
We swapped the fuse out, and we're gonna see if the plug actually has power now. All right, so I think we're good. We're still gonna swap the fuel pump over. We think that was the reason the fuse blew. All right, so we don't get any dirt into the actual fuel pump. We're gonna vacuum this out. With undoing the fuel line. Ta-da! Now we're just gonna undo the lock ring. And just like that, it's off. Now we just need to find a plastic bag so we don't drop fuel all over this thing. All right, cool. What?
Looks like there's a line. See it?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, look at that.
Okay, so that's probably what did it.
Yeah.
China. There you go. All right, guys, so here's our fuel pump. The hose broke and causing the fuel pump probably to overheat and fail. So this fuel pump, it's actually a lot smaller than what's in there. We're gonna see if we can get it to work, but if not, we're gonna have to figure something out. All right, so we have the fuel pump put back together, so let's get this in there. And it goes in just like it came out. You just gotta be careful with that float. All right, guys, moment of truth. We got everything hooked up on there, so let's see if it primes.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, will she turn on without starter fluid? All right, cool. Let's see. She is currently running. No obvious knocking. That's probably all we're gonna let it run with this old oil in there. We just have to verify that the engine wasn't knocking. So let's turn this off. We have a oil filter and an air filter we're gonna be installing on this thing. But before we do that, we need to drain the oil. So we're just gonna undo this and get this thing in the air. All right, so I know we said we're doing the oil pan on this car, and why are we putting new oil if we're just gonna drain it again? We wanna drive the car and make sure it's actually decent before we do, actual, big repairs to it. That way we know we're not just wasting our time. So that's basically why we're doing this. It's only like $30 in oil at the end of the day. So in that box earlier, there was actually a crush washer in there, so we're gonna be installing that. Currently, the car did not have a crush washer, so let's install that. Then also make sure you don't over torque the oil drain nut. I see so many of these cars that are stripped, so just give it a nice snug, nothing too crazy. It's aluminum. It's just an aluminum pan, so, it could strip very, very easy and cost you about like 4 hours in labor. So now in these BMWs, the oil filter actually sits it right here. So we're just gonna use a 36mm socket to break this loose. This oil filter housing is plastic, so just be gentle.
didn't come with it.
Damn. They usually come with.
That thing does not look too good. But, you know, it is what it is. 2 years of sitting. That's why we're changing this, guys. So with these oil filter housings, there's a little O-ring, and you're supposed to swap this out anytime you change that out. So we just use your standard little pick to help us out with that. This thing's pretty brittle. New filter, new O-ring. Guys, it's okay if you get a little bit of oil on your filter. So now we're just gonna crank that down and add some oil.
Now we're gonna replace the air filter because, as you can clearly tell, it really probably needs it. But it looks like it's just a couple tabs. So this is a pretty good way to test if your air filter's bad. Now you kind of just get one of these. Pretty bad.
And while we're in here, we are gonna vacuum this out. We're also gonna undo the mass airflow sensor and spray it out. Just make sure it's nice and clean. All right, so we got the mass airflow all cleaned up. So now it's time to get the filter on the air box, and we'll get this put back together. All right, guys, so we're just putting some air in the tires, and then after this, we're gonna take it out for its first test drive. So the windshield on this thing is pretty disgusting, so we're just gonna clean it. We're trying to actually see on our test drive. All right, guys, so we actually have a potential buyer for this, and we're about to go over to his house. So we're gonna take this to the car wash before we get there, so let's get to that. We're just gonna put some of these down. That way I don't leave any footprints in here. Working at the shop, my feet get covered in grease, so. All right, guys, this is the first time we drive this, so we do have to be kind of weary on everything, so. All right, let's turn it on. Check engine light's still on. We have a oil maintenance light on. Let's see if reverse works. We got power steering. Shit, it's moving. I just gotta close up. My little brother's gonna go with me. He's taking his BMW. We do have to get some gas. Up right now. All right, guys, so we're currently on a test drive, so we're gonna see if this guy buys it or not. It is actually complete right now. It's got an ashtray full of cigarette butts.
Fucking hate steering wheel covers.
Yeah. Guys, that's gonna be the end of this video. So in the next video, we will be detailing this thing and get it ready to resell. We did take it out on a test drive today, and we do have a potential buyer already. But I told him we're gonna make it a bit more presentable before he actually spends money. All right, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll keep the videos coming.